I took the overnight shift at the 24-hour convenience store on Mercer Street because the pay was double, and I needed the cash. It's just a small place. 4 aisles, a drink cooler, a counter with lottery tickets and cigarettes. The manager said nights are dead quiet after 2 a.m., mostly truckers and insomniacs. My first few shifts were fine. I'd stock shelves, mop, listen to podcasts. The only weird thing was the security camera over aisle 3. It flickered sometimes, like bad wiring. I mentioned it to the day guy. He shrugged and said it's been like that for years. Then one night, around 3:15 a.m., I was restocking the candy rack when I felt it. The feeling of being watched. Not casual, not passing. Heavy, like someone standing right behind me, breathing on my neck. I turned fast. Empty aisle. Just the humming coolers and the buzz of the lights. I shook it off and kept working. An hour later, I was in the stockroom pulling energy drinks when I heard footsteps in the store. Slow, deliberate steps on the tile. I froze and listened. They stopped near the counter. I waited 10 seconds, then stepped out with the box cutter in my hand. No one. I checked the door, locked, checked the bathroom, empty. I even looked outside. The parking lot was deserted except for my car under the sodium light. I went back to the monitor to rewind the footage. The camera over aisle 3 showed me walking into the stockroom. Then, 30 seconds later, a man steps into frame. Tall, wearing a gray hoodie pulled low. He's just standing there in the middle of the aisle, facing the stockroom door. Not browsing, not moving, just staring straight ahead. His hands are in his pockets. I watched for a full minute. He didn't shift his weight, didn't look around, just stood. Then the feed flickered hard, went to static for 2 seconds, and when it cleared, he was gone. I felt my skin crawl. I grabbed my phone to call the manager, but the footsteps started again. Same slow pace, this time coming from aisle 2. I stepped out from behind the counter, box cutter ready. Nothing. Empty store. Just the faint smell of damp concrete and something else. Something sour, like old sweat. I checked the camera again. Same thing. The man in the gray hoodie appears in aisle 2 the moment I leave the counter area. Stands perfectly still, facing wherever I'd just been. Then static, then gone. I didn't finish the shift. I locked the front door, turned off the lights, and waited in my car until sunrise. The next night, I called in sick. They got someone else to cover. I heard a week later that the replacement quit too. Said the store felt occupied after midnight. I still drive past sometimes. The lights are always on. The shelves look stocked, but I never see anyone behind the counter. And every time I glance at the windows, I swear there's a tall figure in a gray hoodie standing motionless in aisle 3, just waiting. This happened about 4 years ago, back when I was 22 and taking a gap year from college. To save up some money, I took a job at a gas station located just off a fairly desolate exit of the interstate. It wasn't a busy station, especially not on the graveyard shift, which ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Usually, the only customers I saw were long-haul truckers or weary travelers needing caffeine. It was a Tuesday night, around 3:15 a.m., the kind of night where the silence is so heavy, it feels like pressure in your ears. It had been raining heavily earlier, so the parking lot was slick and reflecting the neon orange glow of the station canopy. I was sitting behind the counter, scrolling through my phone, trying to stay awake. The store policy was strict. After midnight, the front doors were locked. All transactions had to be done through the bulletproof pass-through window. I remember hearing the ding-ding of the driveway sensor, alerting me that a car had entered the lot. I looked up at the security monitors. A beat-up, dark sedan, maybe a Honda or a Toyota, rolled in slowly. It didn't pull up to a pump, though. It parked in the darkest corner of the lot, right near the air pump, just barely within the range of the floodlights. I watched the screen for a minute. No one got out. This wasn't entirely unusual. Sometimes people pull over to sleep or check their GPS, but something about the way the car was positioned, facing the store rather than the exit, gave me a weird feeling in my gut. About 5 minutes passed. Finally, the driver's side door opened. A man stepped out. He was wearing a gray hoodie with the hood pulled up and his hands shoved deep into the front pocket. He didn't walk with any urgency. He just sort of sauntered toward the window. When he got to the glass, I put on my customer service face. "How can I help you, sir?" I asked through the intercom. The man didn't look up immediately. He kept his head down, the shadow of the hood obscuring his eyes. "I need to use your phone," he mumbled. His voice was raspy. "My battery died and my car is overheating. Need to call a tow." "I can make a call for you," I offered. "What's the number?" He finally looked up. His face was gaunt, pale, and he had dark circles under his eyes that looked like bruises. He gave me a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Nah, I need to call my brother. It's personal. Just let me in for a second, man. It's freezing out here." "I can't do that," I said, pointing to the sign on the glass. "Store is locked until 6 a.m. Strictly against policy. If you give me the number, I'll call." His demeanor shifted instantly. The fake smile dropped. He stepped closer to the glass, pressing his forehead against it. "Just open the door," he whispered, but it was loud enough for the mic to pick up. "I'm not going to hurt you. Just open the door. I'm going to have to ask you to leave," I said, my voice shaking slightly. I reached under the counter, resting my hand near the panic button. The man stared at me for another 10 seconds, unblinking. Then, without a word, he turned around and walked back toward his car. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I watched on the monitor as he got back into the sedan, but he didn't leave. The car just sat there. I decided to go into the back office to grab a bottle of water, trying to calm my nerves. The office had a separate monitor that cycled through the cameras, including one that covered the rear of the building where the dumpsters and the employee exit were. As I walked into the office, my eyes darted to that screen. My heart stopped. There was a second man. He was crouched by the back door, wearing all black and holding something metallic in his hand. It looked like a crowbar. He wasn't trying to break in yet. He was waiting. Suddenly, it clicked. The guy at the front wasn't trying to come in to use the phone. He was the distraction. He was trying to get me to unlock the front door so they could rush me, or keep me occupied, while the other guy pried open the back. I scrambled back to the front counter and hit the silent alarm, then grabbed the landline and dialed 911 immediately. "There are 2 men trying to rob the station," I whispered to the dispatcher. "One out front, one at the back door with a weapon." While I was on the phone, the man in the sedan suddenly flashed his high beams. That must have been the signal. On the backroom monitor, I saw the man with the crowbar stand up and jam it into the frame of the heavy steel door. He started prying with violent force. The sound of metal screeching against metal echoed through the small store. Bang, bang, bang. I locked myself in the manager's office, watching the screens, terrified that the back door would give way. The man at the front got out of the car again and ran up to the window, slamming his fists against the glass, screaming obscenities, trying to shatter the safety glass. It felt like an eternity, but it was probably only 4 minutes before I saw blue and red lights reflect off the wet pavement. The moment the sirens became audible, the guy at the back door dropped the crowbar and sprinted into the woods behind the station. The guy at the front jumped into the sedan and peeled out of the parking lot, nearly hitting the incoming squad car. The police caught the guy in the car about 10 miles down the interstate. It turned out the car was stolen. Inside, they found zip ties, duct tape, and a loaded handgun under the seat. They never found the guy in the woods. The police told me that if I had opened that door, Or if the back door hadn't been reinforced steel, I probably wouldn't be here today. I quit that job the next morning. To this day, I can't be in a gas station at night without looking over my shoulder. I used to work the night shift as a security guard at a small industrial warehouse on the edge of town. It wasn't abandoned, but it might as well have been. The company stored old printing equipment and metal shelving, and nobody came in after 6 p.m. My shift ran from 10 at night to 6 in the morning. The place was surrounded by a tall chain-link fence with razor wire on top. Inside were 3 long warehouse buildings, a guard shack, and a gravel lot. My job was simple: sit in the shack, watch the cameras, and do a patrol every hour. Most nights were painfully quiet. Around 2 a.m., even the highway noise disappeared. The only sound left was the buzzing fluorescent light inside the shack and the wind rattling loose metal somewhere in the yard. About 2 weeks into the job, I started noticing something small but strange. On the cameras, one of the motion sensors near Warehouse C kept triggering. Every time I checked, there was nothing there. No animals, no cars, just empty gravel. I told myself it was probably a faulty sensor. One night around 3:10 a.m., the alert went off again. This time I rewound the footage. At first I didn't notice anything. Then I saw it. The camera caught a man standing perfectly still near the side of Warehouse C. He wasn't moving. He wasn't pacing. He was just standing there, facing the building. His face wasn't visible, but I could tell he was close to the wall, almost like he was listening to it. What made my stomach drop was the timestamp. He had been standing there for almost 40 minutes. No movement, no shift in posture, just still. I grabbed my flashlight and radio and told myself I was overreacting. Maybe it was a worker who forgot something. Maybe someone was waiting for a ride. When I got outside, the cold hit me immediately. The yard was silent, too silent. I walked toward Warehouse C, calling out, "Security, you're not supposed to be here." No answer. I rounded the corner where I'd seen him on camera. There was no one there. I checked the ground. The gravel was freshly disturbed, footprints leading away from the wall, straight toward the fence. But the fence wasn't cut. There was no damage, no way out. I walked back to the shack faster than I'd like to admit and locked the door. That's when I noticed something else. On the camera feed, the same man was now standing near the guard shack, facing my door. The camera angle didn't show his face, but I could tell he was looking directly at me. The timestamp showed he'd been there for at least 10 minutes. I didn't hear footsteps. I didn't hear gravel crunching. Nothing. Just the camera. I radioed for backup immediately. My voice was shaking and I didn't care how that sounded. While waiting, I kept my eyes on the screen. The man slowly raised his arm and pointed at the shack window. Then the camera feed cut to static. Backup arrived 15 minutes later. They searched the entire property. No sign of anyone. No footprints this time. Nothing missing. Nothing broken. The supervisor tried to brush it off, said it was probably a trespasser messing with me. I quit the next morning. A week later, I got a call from another guard who replaced me. He asked if the cameras around Warehouse C ever acted strange. I told him yes. He paused for a long moment before saying, "Good, because last night, the footage showed someone standing outside my car for an hour before my shift ended. He never saw the person either. Neither of us ever went back. And to this day, I still think about how long that man stood there, watching, without making a single sound."